And we're back. Hello, everyone. Thank you for barreling forward into infinity with our Trevor Project massive extravaganza that we've been doing the last couple of days. So far, we have raised $386 towards our goal of $500, so we're very excited about that. And I have a special treat for everyone. We are meeting with RC and Brandon from the Masks and Mayhem podcast. Say hi, guys.
You hear that,
Hello.
RC? We're a special treat. It's the nicest thing I've been called this year.
I'll say the first and last time I will be ever called that, I think.
Oh, I'm going to go out of my way to call you my special little treat now, buddy.
Great.
Oh, my bad.
There'll be context that I'll have to provide a lot now.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just linking back here.
Works for me.
So yeah, RC and Brandon are the owners of the Masks and Mayhem podcast. What is your title over there? Creative directors?
Yeah, I'd say that's a good way of putting it. I was gonna say, like, primarily, while I started it, Brandon, since joining in, has become my most frequent and prolific collaborator in terms of expanding the universe.
I prefer to think of myself as the head slapnut. Slapnut number one, if you will.
The best boy grip?
Yeah, something like that.
Awesome. So yeah, Masks and Mayhem is a Mutants and Masterminds podcast that has been running for the last couple of years, and they do great work over there. I've been binge listening to Masks and Mayhem, trying to catch up with everything that they've been up to, and I don't know, I love the production, I love the characters, the emphasis on story over, crunchiness of the rules, all that sorts of fun stuff. Can you guys tell me a little bit about how Masks and Mayhem came to be, what it is, and what you've got planned for the future?
It's all you, RC. I was a late addition.
So yeah, in terms of like how it got started, I don't hesitate to say that I was inspired by the Adventure Zone, another big RPG podcast. It was my first connection with any kind of actual play show. And after listening to that, and I had picked up the first edition of Mutants and Masterminds early on, but I was never really a big RPG person. Just kind of, I enjoyed the books. I enjoyed like superheroes in general. I specifically picked it up because my family didn't want me to pick up Dungeons and Dragons. It was basically like, screw you, I'm gonna get a superhero version of it then. And I kind of like made characters and made this world, but never really had anyone else who took a super interest in it to be able to play with. So I listened to the Adventure Zone and I was like, I really love doing podcasting. Maybe I can find a way to combine, this world I've created and these characters, because I kept picking, even though I didn't really play, I kept picking up the books and kept, creating all of these characters. And then kind of my first foray into GMing was literally like one of our pilot workout episodes, like kind of learning the ropes and kind of learning characters and stuff. And then it was maybe 2 or 3 games in, we started recording it and actually like editing it into a show.
That explains why starting at the beginning, I was like, there is context that is not here.
You got to listen to episode 0, which kind of provides some of the context, but not all of it.
Right. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the World of Union. What is what's the deal? What's it like?
Brandon, do you want to take this one?
I'm sorry, what?
Tell us a little bit about the world that Masks and Mayhem takes place in. What's it like? What's its deal?
Oh, okay. So, from where we have taken it, Masks and Mayhem essentially takes place in a modern-day setting, only with superheroes. As far as I know, there haven't been any, major timeline-altering events, a couple minor things here and there, but basically, Reagan was president, the Queen of England is the Queen of England, all that stuff. Beyond that, obviously there are superpowered threats. There are groups designed to fight that. Most importantly to our group is Union, which stands for RC.
The United Nations Irregular Operations Network.
Thank you. I've always been terrible at remembering that. Masks and Mayhem in particular is centered in, I almost said Highwind, Riverside City. Highwind's a different place with superheroes and junk. It's based in Riverside, where Union has a very heavy presence that might have changed a little bit in recent times, but no spoilers. Listen to our show; it's really good. It's really hard for me to talk about Riverside because Riverside is RC's brainchild. That's his baby. A lot of what I do for the world building is outside of Riverside.
I mean, fair enough. Essentially, Riverside, which is in Connecticut, I would say represents one of the largest timeline departures from like our everyday world. In that Connecticut does not really have a major metropolitan to the level of like Boston, New York, San Francisco, things like that. So I'm still kind of slowly working out like where else the timeline differs, but the general idea being that yes, most of the politics remain the same. Most of the general world history remains the same, but there's just some of these towns that maybe in this world have a different name. Like there's Highwind, which is in Michigan. There's Sunset Beach, which is in Florida, kind of like a Miami replacement. But more or less, the 80% of the show, I'd say at this point, has taken place within Riverside and its surrounding region.
Excellent. And I also set my fictional city in New England. What drew you towards that part of the country to set Riverside in with all the superhero action?
I think it had to do with the fact that like I'm from Pennsylvania, so I've always been in like the Northeast, and now I live in Boston. And so like part of it too was literally just kind of looking at the map and going, where could I fit, a nice city like this? And I was like, I think it'd be really interesting to see, the Northeast is already such a major hub. Imagine having to like compete even more so with another city. So like I imagine that in the world of Riverside, like, New Yorkers don't like Riverside, Bostonians don't like Riverside. Sometimes maybe it's like an enemy of my enemy is my friend thing, because Brandon jokes about it, but every time there's an opportunity to say that the world that people are experiencing in Riverside is better than our own, I usually take it. Like, yeah, they're piloting universal healthcare, or yeah, they're their social services are extremely well funded. It's like everything that I want our world to have generally shows up in Riverside to a certain degree, like without 100% changing the material experience of people living there.
Everything's a perfect utopia, except for you guys. You guys get dead friends and trauma.
Yeah.
God, I hate those commies up in Connecticut, says everybody elsewhere. It does make me wonder if there's like a Gotham City in Rhode Island that's like Riverside is awesome and beautiful and it's full of superheroes, and then there's just some shithole right next door. Like the way Gotham and Metropolis
Highwind.
are right next to each other.
I was gonna say not next to each other, but definitely I think the Gotham-esque would be Highwind by far. Brandon, if you want to elaborate on that further.
So, hi, I grew up in Michigan. Michigan has Detroit and Flint. I don't know how much y'all know about Detroit or Flint, but they're maybe not the most traditionally wonderful places to live. So I took that as well as my passion for just cyberpunk settings as a whole, and I created Highwind. On the surface, it's Detroit or Flint. It sucks. But then there is a literal mutant underground, which is this cyberpunk dystopia where all sorts of crazy stuff happens, and RC has just accepted it.
We've had a long argument about whether or not it's a secret society, because if it's not a secret society, they definitely have to pay taxes.
To which I always say whenever you bring this up, RC, they pay friggin' taxes.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, like apparently a corporation essentially runs the entire underground.
Yeah, they're paying their taxes. The government has no reason to get involved.
Do they though?
We got ours, now you find yours.
Remember what I said about like this being the dichotomy between Riverside and Highwind?
Mm-hmm. We got what we needed. That's everything we need.
Exactly.
And RC, you've been using the same cast for a long time. Can you tell us a little bit about your process for finding those folks that you brought into this world and have helped populate it and turned it into just this really exciting story?
Yeah, I unabashedly through my friends. In terms of like, I've had like, remember I mentioned that I've had the books for a long time, so I would have friends who made characters, and then like those characters slowly populated that world. Or even as I was getting started with the podcast, I was at a party and I said, hey, whoever wants to have an NPC named after them, write your name on this list. So slowly I do have like people that show up that have those names. In terms of the actual cast, so initially we had the two existing cast members, Dan, who plays Yardak, and Rachel, who plays Ruby Lawson, aka Visual Aid. They've been in since the beginning with me. For a good portion of our first season, we had my friend Sama, who played a speedster named Myra, aka Hyperact. And then Sama just had things coming up in life that just really didn't allow her to really stick around. So we kind of were able to work in a story arc where Myra left, with openings though for reappearances potentially.
Speaking of reappearances, we have a special guest appearing right now. Rachel's coming in.
Oh,
what?
holy crap!
Rachel
Sup,
is here.
Nerd.
Hey, Rachel.
Hi. I am legitimately popping in from a parking lot, like I said.
No worries.
We're just talking a bit about the history of the cast of the show.
Oh, nice. What?
So, Rachel, what drew you to play in Masks and Mayhem, other than RC's dazzling charisma?
It's funny, because I was thinking about this the other day. I remember I used to work in downtown Austin, and I would take the bus. I remember being at the bus stop, and RC asking me, and I was like, there are superhero RPGs? I want to be a superhero. And then I remember, like, coming up with Ruby and being like, oh, I can be really creative with this, which I really liked over, like, I feel like a lot of other systems can be really limiting in how you build a character.
Definitely. I guess that is a good question, is what draws each of you to the superhero RPG as opposed to something like D&D or Pathfinder? Or...
I mean, I feel like Rachel really just hit the nail on the head with that one. A lot of other RPGs tend to be very rigid with a class system, or it is trying to, like, it's a lot more specific in what its character creation is trying to do. If you're playing a post-apocalyptic RPG, you're making someone designed to survive in the apocalypse. That kind of narrows you down a certain path, You're not exactly going to be able to sink points into pumpkin carving. With Mutants Masterminds, you could build an entire character around the concept of pumpkin carving if you wanted. I can think of like 7 different power arrays I could give that character right now. You could just do all sorts of goofy crap with superhero games, especially with Mutants and Masterminds, I've found. And I love little goofy crap in my tabletop RPG experience.
Brandon, if you could write down in the notes idea, the pumpkin.
I am putting that in the group chat as
Appreciate
we
it.
speak.
I think even though, like, I have played D&D and Pathfinder, I think I might be a little bit more inclined towards the roleplay part of RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, I want to create a world. I was obsessed with Barbies as a kid for a reason. I had intense, insane stories, and I would like to start creating those with my friends.
I will say, having experienced your guys' role-playing in person, yeah, you guys are great role players. I don't think I've ever answered so many times, what are you having to eat in a game session?
Food brings us together.
We have this tendency to play at dinner time, which is, I don't know if it's a mistake, but it definitely affects the game.
We're so hungry.
I mean, sorry,
You
Rachel.
saw I had a giant thing of pretzels next to me as we were playing.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is something there, the idea that you do learn about a character, just like I wasn't kidding when I say food brings us together, that you can learn about someone based on what they're choosing to have.
Yeah, you could definitely at least tell how adventurous somebody is by what they're deciding to eat. Awesome. So we've talked a little bit about what Masks and Mayhem is, what drew you to playing a Mutants Masterminds game. Can you tell me a little bit about RC, if you have a character in particular that you like to play? What is the history behind your favorite character, or the character that you play in the podcast, if that's not your favorite character?
Gotcha. So within the podcast now, I have played 2 characters. Once we had a friend of ours who made their own RPG called Harsh Generation. They came on for just a guest spot for us to kind of test out their game. So that was my first time getting experience being a player. Excuse me. And then Brandon took over for a story arc, allowing me to play as a character that has been like one of my first creations whenever I first got Mutants and Masterminds, which his name is the Crafter. And basically the Crafter's abilities are primarily he is hyper intelligent, and he was able to create a set of gauntlets that initially their intention was to be able to be like telekinesis, like to move things. But through their creation accidentally like accessed an unexpected power source in the universe, and now can essentially create open portals to different planets, different places across the world, different dimensions, different timelines, to varying degrees of control over that aspect.
And how did you come up with that concept?
Well, let me think. When I first started making the game, I was like 16. So I really, I was a teenager. I didn't really feel like I had a lot of control over my life. So I liked the idea of someone who was smarter than everyone and could go wherever they wanted and do whatever they wanted. And to a certain degree, the character, since I never ended up being a player, the character became more of a connecting point for a lot of other characters. Like, for instance, there was a character that was come up with at one point who was a shadow controller, who was like a small-time thief, and the Crafter caught him and basically said, hey, I'm either going to take you in or you're going to have to change your ways. And like, so a lot of characters kind of have some either loose or direct connection to the Crafter. And in the beginning of the show, I didn't want, because I knew that Riverside had a lot of hero history in it, I tried to make it that a lot of those heroes were in the past, because I didn't want a lot of people overshadowing the cast. So like for a long time, it was described as the Crafter was off-world, like he was just unavailable.
He was off doing Superman things.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Awesome. What about you, Brandon?
For girl, they always have to have an excuse for like, where's Clark? Why isn't he helping?
I'm busy.
Well, building Laserhawk, as RC mentioned, I came in specifically to replace our friend Sama. So Laserhawk really started as me looking at Yardak and Ruby and going, okay, here's what Yardak brings to the table, here's what I bring to the table, what's left on the table? Well, we could use someone who's an all-arounder, maybe a little bit more prickly personality-wise. Both of these characters are still pretty new in their superhero career. I'm going to be this grizzled old veteran. So really it just came from like, what is opposite yet complementary enough to play off of these other 2 characters? And, since then, Laserhawk has evolved in ways that I did not picture when I first built the character, but that's the glory of tabletop gaming. You never know what's going to happen. Maybe Gimbal the Goblin's going to become the mayor of Big Cityville. You don't know when you start rolling dice.
I know with a name like Gimbal the Goblin, the players are going to be like, okay, that's our new pet.
Gimbal the Goblin. He doesn't think he's a goblin. He thinks he's a really ugly gnome. Genuinely.
God, you say that. I adopted a rug of smothering in a D&D campaign once.
I say that because Gimbal the Goblin is a character I've played before.
Yeah. Players will adopt anything that you put a face on.
Accurate.
It's one of the cool things about player characters. What about you, Rachel?
Ulrich.
Or Ulrich.
I created a Ruby. I kind of want, because I think I knew some of the characters, although not everyone ended up staying in, but I wanted to create a character that was like, quote unquote, a normal person, like normal job. I mean, filmmaking is not a super normal job, but not from Atlantis, hadn't been doing this a while. I was pretty young when I did it, so I didn't think I could make my voice. I think I was like, she has to be somewhat close to me in age, but I feel like there's a big miss on a lot of superhero media lately. I miss them having to have a day job and like the normal life. I wanted to like have that mix. and I think I kind of went with a passion of mine that I didn't end up pursuing, and I was like, oh, that's like, that could be a fun thing to like play with, and I like to make movie references, so I wrote that in because I knew I'd probably be doing that anyways.
Yeah, no, that's awesome when there's a portion of a character that's really, really close to who you are as a person, because you know you're going to do that and you should come up with an explanation for it anyway.
I've gotten better at this out of playing RPGs. The reason Ruby's name starts with an R is because I thought I'd respond better if it started with the same letter as Rachel.
That's amazing.
Why do you think that I'm named Brock Balea, Mr. Brandon Brownson?
Yeah.
On the flip side, I now accidentally call you Ruby, though, like during the stream.
Legitimately, I call you that outside of the stream.
Oh yeah, you have.
I don't have that problem.
Oh, I think you called me at once when we were with people who didn't know what we were talking about. And they're like, why the hell did Brandon get your name wrong? You've known Brandon for like 5 years. Like,
I'm not dumb. I just kayfabe. Shut up.
You know, I don't think I did that intentionally, but my first D&D character's name also starts with an A. And my favorite RPG character ever also starts with an A, so that's weird.
I'm even more unabashed about it. The R in RC stands for Robert, which is the crafter's actual name.
And it's funny because the C in RC stands for crafter.
I wish I didn't know what the C actually stood for, so I could like imagine that was true.
I don't know what the C stands for. Please, no one ruin this for me.
It stands for crafter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Robert Crafter, that's my name.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you were going to bring up the fact that you named Crafter Robert.
I'm not afraid to be vain.
Yeah.
It will be vainglorious. You can't spell vainglorious without vain.
Exactly.
Excellent. So, what is in store for listeners of Masks and Mayhem coming up?
Well, we're finally, we've been in a little bit of a production delay, but we're finally finishing up some episodes that we're going to release together that represent the last of the On the Stand arc. And then upcoming, shortly thereafter, we're going to have a special guest episode with someone that the stream here may be familiar with.
Did it, everyone. We got Oprah Winfrey.
It's true. That's me.
We finally got her playing Amanda Waller. Let's go.
No, for people here, it's Fook and Alex. It's me. It's this guy.
Yeah.
And that was a ton of fun.
Oh, it was so much fun playing with you.
Yeah, I would be very happy to do that again anytime.
Think we can make that happen?
Yeah, Beowulf's got to find his brother. I won't spoil what happens in the story, but go listen to it when it comes out, because it's going to be great. I think the last question I want to ask you guys is, do you have any advice for people who might be looking into getting into podcasting or looking to run a streaming game or play in a streaming game that you wish you'd known before you embarked on it?
I mean, this might not be specifically podcasting advice, but I have been doing things in the creative sphere for the better part of 15 years now, and I feel like my advice overall with that is don't be afraid to suck at something, because sucking at something is the first step toward being mediocre at something. Being mediocre at something, though, that's the first step toward being kind of good at something. Like, if you're great at something right off the gate, in 3 years of heavy practice time, you're going to realize, no, you weren't, buddy. Just let yourself suck. You're going to suck a little bit when you start. It's fine. Just take notes, figure out the stuff that sucks, make it not suck. And that's how you stop sucking at something.
Right? That the advice I would say is like, do it with your friends, because like, even if you're like, you're having trouble, like if you're with your friends, it'll be fun still, because like if you're making each other laugh, even if you're frustrated, like you still got each other.
Definitely.
yeah, the show wouldn't be what it is if I didn't have that connection with everyone beforehand. Not to mention, like, I feel like our friendship definitely has grown because we're constantly interacting with each other, talking about this thing we're making together. Yeah. I guess in terms of, I'm going to kind of just piggyback off of Brandon's advice. Yeah, don't be afraid to get started. Do what you can to learn in between. Like if you're podcasting, don't, try to learn between recordings and between edits as to how you can get better. If you're doing RPG specific stuff, like I said, and I'm sure it's very evident to anyone who listens to the show, like I did not know my way around the system super well, and a lot of that for me was luckily covered by editing. Like there's a lot of downtime where I'm like, all right, I think I know how this works, let me double check the rule, and I would cut that out because that's not exciting to listen to, me flipping through pages.
You cut that out, and then you cut me being like taking way too long to do math. We're good.
Yeah, I make Rachel look good at math. That's the whatever your people are bad at, do your best to make them look good at it.
Oh, just not terrible at math, not good at math.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to give you an impossible task.
No, that's amazing. That's really good advice to make sure cut the pause time out and just make everybody look super competent, and everybody be like, this is the best show ever.
Basically, that's why I'm invited back.
That's awesome. Well, thank you all for coming on for our a brief appearance today. I really appreciate getting the chance to chat with you and introduce the work that you guys are doing to our audience.
Pleasure.
You can find Masks and Mayhem at www.masksandmayhem.com or anywhere podcasts can be picked up. Is there anything else you guys want to plug before we get out of here for the evening?
Yeah, I'll take this opportunity to shamelessly plug myself. Check out Hope Brandon Brownson on Spotify. I make music. Sometimes it's not about phalluses.
That's an accurate statement.
I'm Drama Dork 884 everywhere. I make short form videos, mostly on TikTok.
And I would just say alongside the podcast itself, feel free to check out our social media accounts, at MayhemCast, pretty much anywhere. And you'll see when we announce when Alex's episode goes out, and, some of the art we put up and things like that. It's a cool way to keep up with what we do.
Excellent. Well, that sounds good to me. We'll be back, everybody, in 30 minutes for our Emerald City Pride event, where I get to finally step back into the shoes of Ethan, a.k.a. Crucible, a.k.a. history's favorite idiot. We'll be back in just a little bit, and just checking our levels again. We are still at 397 raised. We have a donation. We just got a donation in from John Pologic, so thank you very much for helping support the cause, John. We're almost at $400 for our goal of 500, so I'm really excited about that. We'll see you all here in 30 minutes or so.
Thanks for having us on, Alex.
Oh, of course.
Thanks for having me on.
Anytime.